Nope.
It almost feels like the more consistent you are in the short term, the farther the gap between where you are and where you want to be gets. In fact, I think in order for someone to truly be consistent, they have to have some failure programmed into that.
What if consistency is the strength of your rubber band that pulls you back?
Where the mind goes.
All right, Jensen. So you've had a video production business now for over 2 years. And I'm curious, when did you realize that you had developed a skill set that could take this from, a videography hobby to a full-fledged business, right? Something that you could actually make money off of in a sustainable way.
I had been running my business for about 7 months part-time. And I had just recently quit my full-time job and started to focus on Risk and Joy Productions with 100% of my time. And before that point, I had been doing a lot of free pro bono work where I would, say, hey, you'll get a free video out of this. I'm willing to put this together for you. This is an opportunity for me to build my portfolio, and I would love for you to share it and obviously share that I'm a new business. And that just didn't get me a lot of traction. It gave me practice, but it didn't give me a lot of traction. And then I had one paying client because of a friend who I think kind of was just doing me a favor. And they signed me on. And all of those things helped me grow. But it was the moment when there was somebody who I didn't know very well hired me for this massive multi-video series project where I would travel and get to film on different places around the country that I could tell was very much a huge level up from where I'd been. And this person was trusting me with budget sizes that I'd never experienced before. And that to me was where I went, holy crap, like this is actually happening. I am actually running a video production company, creating content for somebody who I only know a little bit and who's trusting me with making something for them to have an impact in the world. And that was the moment where I really just went, holy crap, this is real. And I almost buckled down even more in my focus of how do I get better? How do I level up to meet the day really of creating something that's worthy of this project?
What would you say the process to getting to that point looked like? What did the 7 months of running a business before you actually, had that first big real client look like? What did your day-to-day look like, and what did you kind of fill your time with to get to a point where you were ready to take on a client like that?
I love the word ready because I don't think we're ever really ready. I think there are opportunities that come your way and you decide if you're willing to be ready. And I think that's what happened for me, where I had put in a lot of work to get to the point where someone would be willing to ask me that. But ultimately, I wasn't ready. I just dove into something that was bigger than me, and it helped me grow. But leading up to that, to even have someone ask me that and be willing to trust me with that request, it was a lot of just experimentation, exploration, and just a stupid amount of learning. Like I had been running my business for about 7 months before that point, but I was building the business informally for probably another 2 years before that point. I think, I had been editing silly videos for friends just for fun. And that's when it was very much in a hobby mode. I found myself loving it. And then when I was starting to question if I wanted to pivot from the previous career I had into something new, I was evaluating, is video or photography or coaching, or at one point I wanted to be like a novel writer, right? I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was experimenting, right? And I was testing these things out. And one of the big tests for me to make this decision of moving really deeply in the direction towards video and storytelling was I ended up taking a month off with my partner and going to Mexico. And I bought a drone, and I had, I think, a GoPro, And I just spent that entire month just taking photos and videos and experimenting and looking up YouTube videos and just trying, rapid prototyping, really just learning, right? Playing and learning. And it was after that I went, I love this enough to go through the fire to get better. And I came out of that going, okay, I'm clear on that I love this enough to want to do that. But there was one more piece that to me that really flipped a certain switch in my brain, which was I had always struggled with consistent practice since I was a kid. I had learned to play the cello when I was young and was terrible at practicing, and I loved to play the cello, but ultimately just ended up quitting because everyone was going so much beyond where I was because I wasn't willing to practice. I didn't love it enough. And I remember setting a goal for myself as I was making this decision of I'm going to take a photo every single day and post it on Instagram. And I know that probably no one will see it, no one will care. My goal was not to grow my Instagram. My goal was just to practice, to have to create every single day and learn what it means to produce some sort of art every single day. And there were a lot of shitty photos that my friends kindly liked on Instagram for probably a year of just me. And I didn't post every single day. I tried, but it's hard. It's hard to be that consistent. But I posted more than I had ever in my life, and I took more photos. Right when you're trying to post one good photo every day, you're taking probably 30 to 100 photos just to get that one. Right. So it was just getting the reps in over and over and over to get to the point where I just noticed over time, okay, this photo was better today than it was yesterday, and that was my only focus.
Did you realize you said the magic word there?
No.
It was about a minute back, but you said the word yeah, you said it. I wanted to ask you these questions because what I was really hoping for and what I was really digging for was I wanted to uncover what consistency looked like in you getting to where you are today. I've personally been fascinated with this idea of consistency for a long time, for myself personally, and over the last year and a half or so for my clients, because I think the term consistency is one that gets bastardized in our culture. I think a lot of times people mistake the word consistency for the word perfection. And there was something that you had said towards the end there that I really honed in on, which was you didn't post every single day, even though that was your goal. But you still posted with a lot of frequency. And you didn't let one day of not posting lead you to breaking the habit altogether. And that's something that it sounds simple, but I think it's an absolutely profound idea, that consistency doesn't have to look like doing the exact same thing every single day without fail. In fact, I think in order for someone to truly be consistent, they have to have some failure programmed into that. And what I mean by that is, and I'll kind of use an example for myself, right? I've actually struggled with consistency in my life for a long time. It's actually been something as I was becoming an entrepreneur that I really honed in on as one of my weaknesses was my my lack of consistency over a long enough time frame. Whether it was learning to play guitar when I was younger to trying to develop specific habits around fitness and nutrition, whether it was trying to journal for a long period of time or keep that as a consistent practice, or being very sporadic with reading, right? I've very much struggled to be consistent in a lot of the things I do because I would mistake consistency with perfection. And one of the things that I really liked was that you had kind of mentioned not even really realizing that you were ready to take on bigger things because in your head you felt like you were so far away from where you wanted to get. And I think that's really something that keeps people from being consistent over a long enough time period. Is it almost feels like the more consistent you are in the short term, the farther the gap between where you are and where you want to be gets, right? And I think that idea is what scares people away from continuing to put in the work day in and day out, to not only develop a habit, but to be able to, kind of taking something from previous conversations we've had, right? Becoming the type of person that does something, right? These identity-based habits that are way more than just building a routine or trying to be repetitive with something. It's really turning something into an ingrained, almost autopilot type process that you don't realize that you get to that point. But once you're there, it really helps unlock this idea that, oh, not only am I good at something, I'm building this habit, but I'm doing so kind of automatically. One example from my life that I want to talk to you, I'm curious if this resonates with you as well, as something that we've talked about a lot, which is just this idea of building a regular fitness practice, right? You and I even talked about this earlier this week offline, where we were just, brainstorming ways to become more consistent and deal with this friction of, getting to the gym, figuring out what to do and everything. For me, as someone who's helped clients do this for a long time, still struggle with that. And the biggest thing that clicked for me from going from a place where I would think I was inconsistent with training to being now we're at a place where I feel like I'm very consistent is just giving myself grace to not get all my workouts in any given week. Right. And I think building in this idea that even though I have a goal of getting 4 workouts in a week, if I get 3 this week, that's still a win. And that doesn't mean it's a failure. And that next week, I have to punish myself by getting 5 in, or even just give up altogether because I'm not able to string 4 days a week in. Right. Giving myself the grace of going, okay, cool. Consistency for me looks like whether or not I get all 4 of my workouts or just 1 workout in, I'm doing something on a consistent basis, week in and week out, to help me push me toward my goals. When you think about your fitness journey yourself, where would you say you're in right now? Because I know you've gone through periods of being very consistent. I know you've gone through periods of being less consistent. Where are you right now? And what do you think got you to that point? What do you think has caused either the consistency or inconsistency in your fitness journey as of right now?
I am just coming out of a phase of not going to the gym at all for probably 2 months. And initially, there was some fear there, that I had fallen off that I'd fallen off permanently, I think. Because before that, to your point, I had a phase for probably, I don't know, 5 months where I was very, very consistent, even though I'm traveling around the world. Um, and there are a bunch of reasons for why I was less consistent, some that are in my control that were my fault, and some that are out of my control. But ultimately, I think what has now helped me get back into it was not beating myself up for those 2 months. There was a moment where I had a conversation with myself and I said, that, again, we've talked about this idea of identity-based habits in a previous episode versus outcome-based habits. And so I went back to that and I said, I really have shifted my identity to being someone who exercises regularly. I am a gym goer. So if I don't go to the gym for 2 months while I'm in this crazy phase of trying to, move into a new house and navigate somebody coming to visit me from another country, like there was a lot of disruption in my life. And I went, maybe it's okay for those 2 months, for this little season of time, I'm going to cut myself some slack. I'm just not going to do it. And I know that because I am somebody who goes to the gym, I'm going to start up again. And I have. Now that that disruption has ended, I've started actually building a little gym in the garage in the back because I've realized that I now live in a different place of town. I can't walk to the gym like I used to. And so the friction is higher. So I'm reducing the friction by building a gym. And so every day this week, I've worked out in the morning.
I love that. I feel like you just set me up for the 2 things I really wanted to hone in on when it comes to consistency. The first one is that I believe actually being imperfect is the definition of being consistent. And what I mean by that is, in order to be consistent with something, we have to know what it feels like to not do it and then get back to doing it again. Right. A lot of times what happens, I'll use an example of someone who's on a weight loss journey, right? They have this moment of inflection where they go, you know what, that's it. I'm going to the gym 5 days a week and I'm going to eat only salads for lunch and I'm not going to have any soda. And they set all these guidelines and then they're fantastic about it for 5 days, 10 days, maybe even 2 weeks of just consistently, right? Constant perfection of not having the soda, not having the salad for lunch, going to the gym, and then life happens, right? And then someone from out of town comes to visit, or something happens with the family, or, you get a new job or you move, and all of a sudden things get shaken up and you miss a day of going to the gym and you don't have your salad prepared for lunch. So you have to end up going out to eat. And, while you're going out to eat, you get enticed by the Diet Coke that's on the menu. So you end up having a Diet Coke and you look at yourself and you go, I'm a failure, right? I didn't do the thing that I said I was going to do every single day. What's the point anymore, right? Why continue going down this? And if I'm just going to continue to fail, then why even set this goal in the first place? And that idea is what keeps people from being consistent. I think the best thing that you can do for yourself in order to really hone in on consistency is figure out what it feels like to be inconsistent, and then again what it feels like to get back on the horse and continue. Despite the fact that you were imperfect, you still went right back to regularly scheduled programming. You went right back to what you need to do, and you didn't beat yourself up for not doing that. Right? That's the first thing that you had said in that, explaining your little fitness journey here. The second thing you said was this idea, and again, I know we've talked about this, but I think it ties directly to consistency, which is lowering the barrier of entry, or reducing the friction for getting the habit or doing the thing consistently, right? You realize that maybe I don't have the ability to get to the gym every single day, right? Or 5 days a week, or whatever it is, whatever the goal you set for yourself is. And instead of saying, well, that's the excuse I'm going to use to not be consistent, you said, okay, what do I do to lower the barrier of entry to still getting a workout every day, even if I can't go to the gym? And for you, that looks like just getting a couple dumbbells, or getting a bench, or even just getting some bands that you can have at the house, where it's like, yeah, maybe it's not the optimal workout compared to having everything at the gym, but it's here. I'm actually doing it. And even if it's just 30 minutes of a band body weight workout, the fact that you lowered the barrier of entry and reduced the friction to doing it is what's helping you be consistent. And I think that cannot be understated, how important it is to look at your goals and then go, how do I make this easier to do consistently, right? How do I make this so simple that it would almost be ridiculous not to do this with a consistent basis? And then on top of that, when I don't do it, because life is going to happen inevitably, how easy is it for me to get back to the practice, right? For me, that's what consistency looks like. It's not perfection. It's not doing the same amount every single day. It's doing something repeatedly. And then when we break that chain, knowing what it feels like to get right back to it.
That's powerful. That's powerful. And the metaphor that keeps coming to my mind as you were talking was, what if consistency is the strength of your rubber band that pulls you back into the habit or rhythm or pattern that you're wanting, right? It's like, and the longer I work out, the better that rubber band pull is for me, right? So again, I had these 2 months where I wasn't going to the gym, but I the whole time I felt this just elastic, almost pulling of like, I miss working out. I love how it makes me feel. I love how my mental health has improved. I love how my physical health has improved. I love how I just feel in alignment with my values, right, when I'm working out regularly. And I felt that pull the whole time. And at the very end of what I was doing right before I restarted my regular routine, I was at the end of a road trip. And that pull was so strong that I was like, you know what? Why don't I just start doing push-ups every morning when I wake up? I know that's not really going to be all I need to do to get to my, exercise and, muscle building goals. But what that does is it's going to allow me to course correct even more easily when I get back home. And it did. Like I just started with, I think it was the first day I just did 20 push-ups. And the next day I was like, I'm going to do 20 more. And then I added 20 every day. And so now that I'm back, I'm doing like 120 push-ups in the morning. And that's not, again, that in and of itself is not what's going to get me to my goals in the big picture, but it is in the small way, right? Just getting me back to a place of being able to have that habit. And so I'm wondering what this name could be for like this pulling effect of this rubber band that gets you back in. And how do you think, Josh, that you can build that pull effect for yourself? Because like you said, it's inevitable. You're always going to fall off track. You will always, always, always fall off track. But I think now, even of me with video creation, I am so addicted to creating that even when I'm like on vacation or on the weekend, I feel this like craving to just create something. And I'll find some way to almost create a mini project. And many times no one sees any of these things. I probably take these photos or this little video and it just goes in the bin. But I just love trying to create something and tell a story.
I love that rubber band analogy. I don't know if you just came up with that off the top of the dome, but it really resonates with me because not only have I experienced that and I feel it before, but it actually kind of draws right back to some of the neurological reasons why you have that pull effect. So there's this little tiny part of your brain called the basal ganglia. And it's like this almond sized cluster of neurons, like way deep in the brain, right? And it's a very, very important part of the brain when it comes specifically to habits, because it is where habits get stored and it's where habits get retrieved from, right? And really what it does is it makes things repeatable almost subconsciously. So this is the part of the brain that acts on um, the cue routine reward response that habits are built off of, right? The basal ganglia is the thing that acts out the routine when you experience the cue almost on autopilot. So and it allows the prefrontal cortex to kind of do its thing so you can make decisions and be active in attention while also performing a routine, right? So what has happened, and right, kind of going back to the rubber band effect, is you've built this habit and the basal ganglia has acquired this habit as almost an autopilot routine, so that when you don't have that, there's almost this friction or this stress in the brain of like, I'm not able to act on this routine that your brain subconsciously wants to act on. And both good and bad habits get stored there, right? So it's really this place where, you're getting the cue, this, you see something and it sparks this idea of like, ooh, I want to create something. But without this ability to act on that cue and create a routine and a reward for it, the basal ganglia starts to short circuit, and that's where that pulling effect starts to feel from. So it's really cool that you had brought that up, because it was something I was learning about and wanted to talk about, which is this idea that there's a place in the brain that creates that pulling effect. And it's this want from this little tiny part of your brain to go like, I want to act on this habit. We created this routine. There's this neural pathway here and I want to act on it. And whether it's good or bad, it's going to do that subconsciously. So that pulling effect is it's coming from a literal almond sized cluster of neurons in your brain. Another thing that I've been thinking about a lot when it comes to this idea of consistency is the fact that it's not really limited to habits. Um, I've been really fascinated with this idea of consistency and its relationship to building trust with different people. Um, I was thinking about this with a friend of mine that I've been trying to become a little bit closer with over the last few months. And one of the hardest things that's been keeping me from really building a better relationship with this person is they've just historically been really inconsistent with showing up on time to the meetings that we set up with each other. Right. For instance, we were supposed to get coffee a couple weeks ago, and 30 minutes before I was about, or 20 minutes before I was about to head out the door, he texted me and was like, "Hey buddy, something came up and I'm not able to make coffee this time. I'm really sorry." And I was like, cool. No, that happens. I didn't really think about it too much, but it happened again about a week or two later. And to no slight of this person, right? I think they were being genuine. They probably were overwhelmed with a lot of things going on, but um, this ability, or this lack of ability to be consistent by showing up at the times that we had agreed on, and making me allowing me to trust them in terms of, okay, this is someone that says they're going to do the things that they say or that does the things that they say they're going to do, has just made it a lot harder for me to build a good relationship with this person. And kind of what I've realized is they've been inconsistent with their actions, and their words haven't necessarily matched their actions. And that's led to me not feeling like I can trust this person as much. Another example of this is kind of when my wife and I were building our relationship together, right? One of the things that I realized was that um, if I didn't show up for her consistently in the way that I said I was going to, it really rubbed her the wrong way. And it made it hard for her to trust me, to be able to confide in me, to be able to to be able to say what she needs to say around me because she didn't feel like she could trust me. And the reason was because I wasn't consistent with the way I responded. And this is just still an idea that I'm mulling over, and it's starting to click with me. And maybe I can throw it over to you and see if you have any examples of this in your life. But I've really realized this idea of like, if I want to build trust with another person, I need to be consistent with my actions. And whether that's consistently communicating, whether that's consistently showing up to the things that I say I'm going to commit to, or whether it's just acting in a consistent manner in terms of not being wildly variable in my emotions and my thought process, right? There's people in my life I can think of that I'm like, I don't know how they're going to act at any given day, right? Sometimes they're high, sometimes they're low. And it's very hard to build trust with a person like that. Any examples of that in your life that are coming to mind, or anyone that, and you don't have to obviously name names, but examples in your life where you feel like it's been hard to build a close relationship with this person because of their inconsistencies or maybe your own inconsistencies?
Yeah, I think that's powerful to take, this concept of consistency and evolve it even past habits. Um I think there have been very much times where I have not been a consistent person in someone's life that I care about. I think one example that comes to mind that I know that she wouldn't mind if I shared is my own mother. There was a time, a season of life where I was not very consistent in showing up for her and communicating and checking in um, and she called me out on it, and that was hard to get that feedback. And I think initially I didn't respond honestly to that feedback very well. But I think over time, as we've moved our relationship from just being a parent-child relationship to being two adults having a friendship, I've really realized being consistent and showing up for her in the ways that I know that are important to her is key to us having an adult friendship. And I think, when you're in that transition, it's easy to think that, well, I'm the kid. I can kind of get away with whatever I want, just like I always have, right? My parents will show up for us, and she still would have, but I think she was saying like, I want to have a closer adult friendship with you. And here's how I need you to be consistent with me to do that. And I've seen, just as I became less stubborn, honestly, and actually showed up for her more consistently, we really do have a healthy adult friendship now. And it's taken time. So I think you're onto something there of like the power of consistency in all sorts of facets of our life. And the one thing that really just struck a gong in my head as you were talking was consistency builds trust with other people. But what if it also builds trust with ourselves? What if building habits and building trust applies also to our trust of our own being, right? Whether it's the gym or work or whatever. I think that's where that cognitive dissonance comes into play when we're not showing up for ourselves by following through on the things we said we would do, is we are literally breaking trust with ourselves. And I think in a way that's how you can build that elastic rubber band experience. If you are really committed to yourself and you literally check in and say, me not taking action to exercise, me not taking action to do what I need to for my business or for my job or for my health or for my family, is literally breaking trust with myself. I think that elastic rubber band is going to pull you right back to where you need to be.
Where the mind goes.